Can you see the presentation now? Is it changing slides?
Great. Okay, I don't see the people there, but hello, nice to meet you. I'm Celia Martínez. Hello, nice to meet you. So I am a postdoctoral fellow at the Department of Humanities here at the Pompeu Fabra. And as Macarena was explaining, I'm a Marie Curie. I'm doing a project funded by the European Union, and it's the overall project is called Embodied Local Feminism, a new feminist cultural movement in Catalonia. And I have to give this disclosure that this is funded by the European Union, this presentation and this project. And basically, I work on the local translation of the transnational feminist movement, fourth wave feminist movement, that is considered to be again transnational, globalized, and I deal with the local consequences in Catalonia. And today I will be talking, I think it's pretty fun topic because I deal with popular culture and celebrities. That's always a little bit like spicy and it's nice, it's sexy. And I deal with star systems. And when we talk about star systems, we are referring to celebrities, stars that are produced, that are reproduced, and that circulate in specific media systems, and in this case, in the Catalan media circuits. So, especially by TV3, the public television in Catalonia. But I will go back to that. I want to first theorize about the concept of youth. Macarena kindly asked me to theorize and to conceptualize why I understand by youth in this specific research project, since this is a group that deals with youth, right? So I will give you, hopefully it's not boring. I know every time we theorize, sometimes it can be a little dense, but hopefully it will be fun. So I will be using Tyler Daniel. I think his book, The Creative Underclass, Youth, Race, and the Gentrifying City is fantastic. And he says, and I quote what he says, like literally, I'm here approaching youth as a biological life stage between, say, the ages of 15 and 24. Instead, I am approaching youth as a social construct and as an image. This is really important for my research. One that is always implicated in plans for the organization of social life. And he goes on and tackles creativity, and the concept of creativity and an artist is very important when we conceptualize youth. And youth in this neoliberalism stage that we're living. And he says, youth is also useful in relation to the discourse of creativity, because it is an ambiguous and elastic category, one that can engender both anxiety and hope for the future. So youth is always kind of like instrumentalized in order to talk about the future, either to have hope or to have anxiety. It depends, right? But it's always instrumentalized to refer to the future. So when we talk about youth, when we talk about neoliberalism and processes of I always have trouble saying it, subjectification processes, we need to talk about Foucault, and we need to talk about the concept of homo economicus. And he basically says that neoliberalism now does not simply liberalize the economy. We know that neoliberalism it's pretty much about producing subjects more than producing any economy. I mean, it's economy, but it's also about subjectification processes. He says that it produces a new type of subject, one who governs themselves according to the logic of the market. And he literally says, Homo economicus is an entrepreneur. Now we are all entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurs of ourselves, entrepreneur of himself. So individuals now are free as they internalize market rationality, investing in their education, their health, their social relations as assets, and their creativity as well, right? The neoliberal subject thus embodies a form of self-discipline freedom. This is going to be extremely important for my project. A mechanism of biopolitical control that operates through choice, competition, and performance. Those are pillars of neoliberalism, right? If you have any question or you want to interrupt me, go ahead. I want this to be dynamic as well. If you want to say something, just go ahead. So how do you take on Foucault's conceptualization of this Homo economicus? Eyser, Mansfield, Wormley, and the rest in weeks have conceptualized creativity and youth, two very important terms in my project, within the framework of neoliberal thought to describe youth as creative subjects, right? Figures that shape expectations of productivity that in reality function as tools of self-discipline and competitiveness. Again, pillars of neoliberalism nowadays. And I have a really long quote here, but I'm gonna read it because I think it's really important. And I think these quotes or these quotes kind of like inform my research, but my research also challenges these quotes. And because this is a group that deals with youth, I think it's gonna be interesting. So he says, the modern age, in fact, invented the notion of youth. We know that, right? As an interval between childhood and adulthood. From the Romantics in the 18th century and the dawn of modernity, all the way through the 70s, youth was understood to have a special role, to step outside the world and question it. And you may disagree with this. We maybe will give like a space to have a debate after this presentation. To change it with, I don't know what it says there, because I can't see it but something in opposition from adults. Was the time to think about the world as it existed and the world that you wanted to make. But we no longer have, this is a very pessimistic view of youth. We no longer have youth as it would imagine by modernity. Now we have youth as it would imagine by postmodernity. In other words, by neoliberalism. Moving forward to a different state is a possibility that neoliberalism excludes. Neoliberalism believes that we have reached the end of history, a steady state condition of free market capitalism that will go on replicating itself forever. There's no change, there's no possibility of change. The historical mission of youth is no longer desirable or even conceivable. The world is not going to change, so we don't need young people to imagine how it may be. So in this context, again, I go back to creativity because this is a concept that the media that I study like instrumentalizes. Creativity in this context is basically a business concept aligned with the other cliches that have come to us from the management schools by the way of Silicon Valley, as well as disruption, innovation, transformation, all these words that have lost their initial meaning. Okay, having all this theoretical framework in mind, I'm gonna go now to my research project. And I will give context specifically for those people who may not be from here, maybe you, for example, that may not be so familiar with the Catalan context. So I deal with what is called the post-Procés moment, the aftermath of 2017, when Catalonia reached the culmination with the declaration of the unilateral declaration of independence and everything that happened afterwards. So following the failed unilateral declaration of independence and the imprisonment or the exile of some of these politicians, Catalonia entered a phase that we are going through this phase still of institutional crisis, and this is very important to conceptualize youth in this context, emotional exhaustion. People were tired, specifically young people. We enter a moment of political reconfiguration. Independence ceased, this is very important, to dominate public discourse. In the previous years, we have been like saying that independence and this political fight has been dominating the whole media, and now there's a stop here, giving way to pragmatism, coalition politics, and a focus on governance rather than confrontation with the Spanish state, and kind of this like peacemaking discourse. I'm gonna move to the media because this is what I study. This is important for people who do communication as well. There's an institutional transition and rebranding of public TV. So public media outlets such as TV3, I have like a mix of languages right now. TV3 and Catalonia Radio interface of redefinition and rebranding after years of getting politicization with the process moment. So there was a need and a very explicit need for cultural renewal and for political renewal. And there is an emergence of new platforms, really straightforward. This is directed to young people. We need new content. There's a void. There's a hole here. And we need to talk about new things. And we need new platforms, new digital platforms like Eva and Trescat. I don't know if you know them. Eva and Trescat platforms that they are super popular in Catalonia right now, directed at young audiences. And this platform emphasizes Catalonia as a cultural hub, this place full of creativity, of young people, entrepreneurs, rather than a political project. It's a cultural hub, and they explore creativity and diversity instead of nationalist rhetoric. This has been left in the past time, especially through this new digital media. So there's a generational change. Younger generations are re-articulating Catalan belonging through pop culture. This is what I study: pop culture, digital media, urban art, rather than traditional narratives of nationalism, Catalan nationalism. So, from I would say 2022, with these institutional claims, these new media and digital platforms that are emerging, we see suddenly something that hasn't happened in Catalan media before, and it's the concept of star systems. We see star system is like kind of like a Hollywood concept. And even in Spain, we have seen this quite a lot. We know there's a sequence of actors that we see, Tony Banderas and Javier Bardem, and all these gossiping programs that we have seen in Spain since Francoism. So it's not new to talk about star systems in Spain, but in Catalonia, it's something completely new. But from 2022, we see these headlines, these huge headlines in very hegemonic newspapers like El País saying like, oh my God, there's a new star system in Catalonia. I have headlines here like, ¿Qui es el nuevo star system catalán? Qui es qui? So who is who in this new star system in Catalonia from the internet? Eva is the platform that I was talking about. Eva, el altavoz del star system catalán. Una nueva onada de popular, a new wave of urban music. So there's these institutional efforts to say like, we have a star system here, we have these celebrities that circulate, and they refer to star system within the internet, influencers, they talk about influencers, they talk about actors and actresses in cinema and in TV shows, and they talk about urban music, and I deal with urban music, the star system in music specifically, right? And I'm gonna present here just a snapshot, like a little appetizer etapa from my project, because it's very long, but hopefully it will make sense and you will find it interesting. So I kind of argue that TV3, as the Catalan public institution, instrumentalizes youth and creativity as a mechanism of cultural and linguistic governance, creating what I call technologies of conduct, shaping young citizens as creative, self-managing, self-disciplined, and linguistically committed individuals. And I think that's why the theoretical framework of neoliberalism and creativity was very important to understand this top-down institutional initiative by Catalan media. And this, by the way, these are preliminary results. I'm still working on this research. So I have a couple of case studies, but I'm going to present one, and it's the case of Julieta. Do you know Julieta? Some of you?
No.
A little bit, sounds familiar?
Yes.
Someone who is watching, can you maybe...
Yeah, so that at least we see the faces and someone says.
Yes, I don't see the faces. Maybe you can with your microphone just say yes or no. Yeah, I'm just curious.
You can show more.
Let me see.
Julieta.
No.
We are meeting the national.
No, okay. Okay, there's a lot of international. Okay, so just let me give you some context. So Julieta is the new super pop star, the new Catalan diva, and she actually claims herself to be the Catalan diva. She says, "I'm the first Catalan diva that ever existed." So she is like, imagine, I don't know. Let's talk about something super international that everyone knows. Taylor Swift. I'm not a big fan, but respect Swifties.
Julieta is the Catalan Taylor Swift.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So imagine how big she is, okay? And we're talking about Gen Z specifically. And she says, "Soy la diva que Cataluña esperaba tener. I'm the diva that Catalonia always wanted to have, right?" And this is Julieta. And I will talk about Julieta. This is, I don't know why it's not working now. Well, maybe you have to please. So my methodology, I use Richard Dyer's methodology on very typical from cultural studies and celebrity studies when he analyzes star text. And basically the way he studies celebrities is by analyzing their star text, and their star text is everything that is being written about the star. So I'm talking interviews, social media, in this case, music videos, the lyrics of the song, everything, headlines, of course, the interviews that they give, everything that is written about the star, and everything that they say and they articulate about themselves. So I studied Julieta specifically through the neoliberal discourse of the Catalan dream that I explained. And also, you know, when we do cultural studies, we always, how many of you do cultural studies here? Like you do, Macarena? Yes, a little bit. So you know that we always try to see like the fault lines, the cracks, right, in the discourse. Like we don't say like black and white. We say like, okay, this is institutional, this is a top-down movement, but also there's always the cracks, right, that we can see between the lines, and we like to find the gray areas. So I don't like to say like data is just, you know, an institutional product that blah, blah, blah. No, I like to also say, okay, yes, and what else? And I think there's also a political potential of being a diva, and I think being a diva, being a star, creates effective spaces that are really interesting, especially for queer people. So I will go to talk about that later. So just to show you, to give you some context, she created the logo, I am the Catalan Dream. And this is the merchandising that she created. If you're walking through the streets in Barcelona, it's not rare to see young people wearing these t-shirts and these sweaters that say, I am the Catalan Dream. So it's pretty interesting, right? So obviously she takes that from I am the American Dream and Britney Spears and all this discourse, this American discourse that comes from pop culture as well. But what is the Catalan Dream exactly? Because usually when if you talk like pre-Declaration of Independence and pre-2017 and all this, if you talk about the Catalan Dream, that meant achieving the independence from Catalonia. There's no question about that. And now the Catalan Dream is something completely different. So what is the Catalan Dream? Basically, in Momificadas, it's a very famous podcast in Spain. Julieta is having an interview there and they ask her, so Julieta, what do you mean by the Catalan Dream? What are you talking about? And she says, the Catalan Dream is about bringing this pop culture to Catalonia, to Barcelona, that people feel more joyful and empowered. But in the end, everyone has made their slogan their own. People have turned it into something very personal and Catalan. That is to say, it's an empty signifier. So she's basically saying, Catalan Dream is everything, right? Whatever you want it to be, but it's about pleasure and having fun. So this new Catalan Dream is no longer, what we know is no longer built as a collective political project, that's for sure, of rupture, but rather it's an individualized experience of success, expression, and pleasure. There's something political in that as well. I will explain that later on, but it has definitely nothing to do with the political project of independence, of achieving the independence and this project that Catalonia had. So basically, I argue that the Catalan Dream is a depoliticization of the previous Catalan Dream, previous to the post-process moment, which is no longer explicitly linked to the independence horizon or to more hegemonic and I would say even masculinist national discourses, but instead is reformulated through qualities of pleasure, self-expression, and personal success. I would say that this dream is very compatible to global dynamics and neoliberalism, right? As I was saying, it stems from the American dream. And it is projected through really carefully crafted aesthetics, as really related to social media. Digital intimacy, but it's interesting that it's related to social media, but it migrates to analogical life as well. So that's interesting. And non-confrontational Catalan identity. It's not very political in that sense. But I would argue too that it's a depoliticization, but it's also a repoliticization because as we know, we study this type of dynamics, everything is politics. Even when it seems depoliticized, there's some politics, there's some sort of like even affective politics. So there's an affective repoliticization where Catalan identity, again, is not linked to a collective political project, but it's an attractive cultural brand within the global market, especially linked to urban music and social media that has to do with creating these archives of affective relationships that, as I was saying, is important to some groups, especially queer young people that I will go and elaborate later on. Hola. So I'm going to talk about the political potential of the diva. So having divas, especially for queer people, has always been really, really important. There's a lot of authors that talk about this, especially Brett Farmer. He says that female adoration in queer context has been a cornerstone of gay cultural production since ever. And I like the theory of Anne Chekovic as well. She does queer studies and affective theory. She emphasizes the concept of, I don't know if you're familiar with the structure, the concept of the structures of feelings, as sites of political and cultural knowledge. She says that cultural queer theory or queer history hasn't always had the hegemonic, more traditional way of expressing theory. But these structures of feeling, these spaces where there's an intensive affective emotion are also history. They're also archives, but different sorts of archives. She says that feelings are, as I was saying, ways of making history as well. They are archives for people who have been excluded from traditional histories and from traditional epistemologies. And Red Farmer says that the diva is a very interesting figure because it disrupts the categorical binarism of male, female, self, other, right? It's very interesting for the people. I don't know if you have a diva that you like or if you identify you're smiling because you do. Me too. I'm obsessed with Rosalia, and you too. There's a sentence in Spanish that is like "soy yo literal." That's me, literally. That's literally me. That I think it's very interesting and it says a lot. It seems very superficial, but it says a lot when you say like, "Oh my God, es que es mi literal." Soy yo literal. It means like there's a disruption there. Like you are, what do you identify with her so much that you're like, there's not even a distinction or even like identification desire. Do you identify with her or are you desiring her? Do I like her? Like, or it's there's basically a disruption of binaries. That's what Brett Farmer says about the concept of the diva. Which I find really, really interesting. And again, it creates these archives of feelings and these collective spaces where people are feeling a lot and there's an intensity of emotion using the concept of affect theory. So these are some headlines that I find important so you know the power that Julieta has. Julieta, la diva pop que pone a Madrid a cantar en catalán. So the diva that has Madrid singing in Catalan, this is, you know, a little bit about the context of like struggle in Catalonia, Madrid, periphery center. This is pretty big. And again, Julieta, soy la diva que Cataluña esperaba tener, and the diva that Catalonia was expecting to have. And how much time do I have left? I don't want to like.
5.
Okay, 5 minutes. So we have, I was explaining these celebrities as markets, as a top-down movement created by Catalan institutions, but also we have what like the institutions create, but also we have the reception and audiences have a lot of power. As we know in communication studies, in cultural studies, the audiences and the reception, these are subjects with a lot of power as well, right? And celebrities are polysemic texts, and as texts, they give space to a lot of interpretations, and the audience reception is essential for the creation of the star story. So one thing is what Star Wars do, and then what other thing is what we interpret the stars, right? So I like this quote that it says, "The nation is not merely the result of macro-structural forces, it is a practical accomplishment carried out by ordinary people through everyday activities." So our micropolitics is also very important, right? So I'm going to talk now about a movement created in social media that is called Catalunya. So pardon my French here. So Kant, you know the word in English. I know it's not very politically correct, but so they make a play of words by Kant and Catalunya. So a mixture, right? So we can start imagining what that is. And basically, it is a term used on social media as a response to the Catalan dream. I was talking about the Catalan dream being a kind of like a neoliberal capitalist imaginary. So Catalunya, it starts, I actually just interviewed the guy who created this term on Twitter or X. And it's a term to reimagine Catalan identity and reimagine the Catalan dream produced by the Catalan celebrity movement, but from a queer and feminist perspective. So I included picture here, so by Catalunya artists that are considered to be like queer and feminist. So I have some examples here. So Atenció Catalunya, so they use it as to refer specific type of Catalan people. Or here, Catalunya, they have Úrsula Corberó, really famous, really powerful Catalan actress. Rita Fernandez, of course, Baquial. Catalunya, they even made it like an urban dictionary that says Catalunya, la Catalunya triunfante, triumphed Catalunya. So the Catalunya, the Catalan, that is like the real cool and successful Catalunya. La Neisha inicia, she's a trap singer, la campaña electoral para ser la presidenta de Catalunya, Catalunya's president. So it's very joyful and it's very powerful and playful. But of course, it has like a political, I think, kind of explicit meaning. But as I was saying, it's a term created in social media, but it's interesting that it's created as a joke and as a meme, but it migrates to hegemonic media. and to the streets. Because, for example, here, Catalunya domina concert in Sala Polo. So there's actually like these concerts that kind of represent Catalunya. Concerts done by young people. So we see it on the streets, something that media, but it migrates to the real streets and real urban spaces in Barcelona. And here it's interesting because we see El País, a very hegemonic media, as we know, say like Catalunya, using the term that had been created as a joke in social media. So they use the word Catalunya. ¿Qué es la música queer? Okay. So I think it's, I'm trying to theorize what Catalunya is, and I think it's a micro-political expression. And I find it interesting because it's a liminal identity that disrupts traditional nationalism, institutional mainstream feminism, digital analogical spaces, because as I was saying, it's digital, but it's also analogical. It's a non-binary femme space. So it's a non-binary, but it's definitely femme, Catalunya. I mean, the word is very self-explanatory. And this is very long, so I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but basically there has been a lot of evidence that Catalan young people has been less participatory in politics in the last few years, especially like the post-process moment. There's exhaustion, people are tired, they're not so much like implicated as the years before 2017. But there's a couple of studies that show that the concept of participation and politics have changed. There has been a redefinition of participation, right? That gives place to more diverse ways of understanding democracy and action in the public sphere for quite some time. So it is essential to make distinctions between institutionalized political participation and non-institutional participation. So yes, maybe they're not so much implicated in the independence movement or in even the political more institutionalized spaces like go and vote, but there's other spaces, especially I'm talking about queer spaces that are also very political, that fight and have very counter-hegemonic discourses that are interesting to consider in this context. So I think this star system and these discourses and these movements happening on social media amplifies the visibility of marginalized communities and contributes to the cultural revalorization of minoritized languages such as Catalan. They always insist a lot on speaking Catalan, also transforming Catalan through queer slang, but they use Catalan and they insist a lot on that. Not so much on the political project of independence, but yes, in terms of like keeping Catalan and revalorization of the Catalan language. So as a conclusion, and I finish with this, the emergence of this new star system happening in media, I think it represents a very contradictory space of convergence for an ambiguous framework that, on the one hand, aligns with the top-down, as I was explaining, top-down national building mechanism promoted by Catalan media, in this case, TV3, through the instrumentalization of young people and creativity and this neoliberal discourse that I was explaining, but it also evolves into a bottom-up movement, such as Catalunya, originated in social media that proposes the queering of Catalan identity and of this movement, this institutional movement. I don't know if that makes sense. Yes, okay. So I think just to finish, looking at star studies, there's some fields in cultural studies that are under-examined, sometimes especially when it comes to stateless nations, such as Catalonia, can be a platform where meanings of gender and nation are negotiated, contested, reimagined, and spectacularized. And I think they have a lot of potential. There's a lot to say about this. And I hope I can keep exploring this space that is definitely underexplored, sometimes because it's just popular culture and celebrities, and it's Catalan popular culture, and no one really cares. But I think it's important to look at these spaces because they say quite a lot about Catalan culture. Thank you so much. And here's my email if you want to take a note and just have more questions and want to contact me. Happy to answer questions. Thank you so much.